Hi there. Welcome to Block Talk Live with Deanna, Quinn, and Doug. My name is Deanna Hansen, and I'm a certified athletic therapist and the founder of Fluid Isometrics and Block Therapy. And today is day 4 of the journey working on Doug. We're working with his scoliosis, and I just wanted to share a little bit about some of the work that we're doing so that you can get a bit of an understanding of what Fluid Isometrics and Block Therapy is all about. Now, I can't go and dive into the technique in full because when I'm actually focused on my work, I'm not talking, I'm very focused, my eyes are closed, I'm working in his tissue, but we're going to be doing some cool stuff and just show you how we've translated Fluid Isometrics to Block Therapy and how simple and efficient it is using the Block Buddy to melt through scar tissue in your fascia. So the first thing I want to share with you is the fact that diaphragmatic breathing is the most important component of our health. When we breathe diaphragmatically, we feed the body 6 times the oxygen compared to when we breathe through the muscles of the upper chest. Now, the biggest challenge that we face is because we compress over time. You know, if we're sitting in front of a computer for 20 or 30 years, we've literally collapsed the rib cage into the core, and that diaphragm muscle that should be moving up and down for proper breathing, it gets locked. So we're not able to access that breath, and what ends up happening is the breath starts coming higher and higher. So we don't bring it deeply enough into the lungs to actually reach where 70% of the oxygen receptor sites reside. So I'm gonna just share a little bit, showing with Doug here some of the stuff that's so important and how we can use the Block Buddy to facilitate this work. So first of all, Doug, if you can just breathe as we've been teaching you through the belly, we should see the belly rise and fall with the breath. When we inhale, we want to make the belly pretty much as big as we possibly can, and then through that full exhalation, we want to squeeze the belly small. Now, what is really interesting to note is when we're exhaling fully, that's when the diaphragm is lifting in the core. That is the counter force to gravity. So it is so important that we understand that if we want to truly defy aging as we go through time, we need to really connect into that full conscious exhalation, because every action has an equal and opposite reaction. So as gravity is a constant force pulling us down, compressing our tissue, causing restriction to blood and oxygen flow to the cells in the body, it's that full conscious exhalation that is that counter force. And again, when we collapse this way, we can't breathe properly. So what I observed working on my clients is when I would try to get them to breathe properly, a lot of them didn't even know where this area was because they were so far out of alignment and locked. So one of the ways that I would teach people initially in the treatment room is I would put pressure into their belly, and then I would have them pushing back into my hand. So Doug, if you could just push back. I'm just gonna put a little pressure here, and now you're pushing here. So now what we're doing is we're finding this muscle for you. So often, again, if I would ask people to breathe properly, it was frustrating at first because I didn't connect the dots yet, and they wouldn't know how to do that. And suddenly it's like, you know what, just push your belly into my hand and we're gonna be able to find this breath. So now I'm gonna show you how simple it is to use the Block Buddy to get that same work in your tissue. And this is the first position, no matter what we're doing in the body, no matter if it's the core, the pelvis, legs, head, neck, and arms, we're always gonna start with this position so we can kickstart that proper diaphragmatic breathing to optimally feed the body. So Doug, I'm just gonna have you sit up for me. Just roll over to one side and sit up. So now we always want to have the block right on the belly button. So we're just going to place it down here like that, and you're going to lie right on the Block Buddy. Now, the really great thing about this is you're in control. So if this is really painful for somebody, we don't want to force that. We want to allow the tissue to absorb the block with your breath. So initially, we can start up on the elbows. If that's too painful, we can do it on a mattress. And if you can come all the way flat to the floor, even better, because now we can allow that block to sink into the core. And then through the initial instruction, it's all about inhaling into the block. And by doing that, we're locating the muscles that we need to use to breathe properly. And when we're doing the practice, we always hold each position for a minimum of 3 minutes because we're melting through tissue. You can't force that melting. But when we connect that diaphragmatic breath That's like turning on that internal furnace. So we're heating the tissue from the inside, as well as when we're lying on the block, we're also connecting pressure and heating from the outside. So we become very efficient at creating space in the tissue and melting through those adhesions that are locking the body out of alignment. So this is just one very simple example of how the Block Buddy is so simple to use and so efficient at releasing that tissue. So now, Doug, I know we haven't been here for 3 full minutes, but if you could just exhale up off the block. Do you think you can talk for a sec?
Yeah, sure.
I would love for you to explain how your breath has changed over the past few days from learning what we've done.
Oh, sure. By learning to breathe diaphragmatically correctly, I let the breath out fully, and like almost like having a belly, and then 4 seconds, and then almost in a rhythm. I don't let my belly out, hold it. Quinn was showing me as well as you. Let it out, and then I'm not doing it right now, and then almost in a motion, just a motion, comes back in for 6 seconds, and then tighten up the root, as you call it, and then almost pull the abdomen in, but naturally and slowly.
So
yeah.
Yesterday we shared your before and after pictures from day 1, 2, and 3, and we can see in those pictures how much longer your core is,
yeah.
how much narrower your waist is,
yeah.
how much more symmetrical your body is, and how much flatter your belly is.
Yeah.
So in just 3 days of doing
yeah.
this work, this very simple work to
yeah.
do, we've already made some really dramatic changes in the tissue. And that's because when we take our time and we melt through those adhesions, we're creating space so that we can move our cells back to proper cellular alignment. So fluid isometrics is a full body practice, and there's been so many things that we've been doing on your body
yeah.
that are
extremely we've made extreme changes.
Extreme changes.
I mean, I called you today and told you my lower back is flat as a pancake. There was a hump yesterday. We've done some intense work, but always starts with the breathing, which at first, once again, seemed like this is going to be complicated. It's really simple. Just by listening to it, and when you put your hand up, belly goes out, and in a fluid motion, come back in. Fluid.
Yes.
Fluid isometric.
So
just fluidly back and forth.
When I'm working on you and we're going into that, that work, again, it's very hard for me to talk and work.
Right.
So if I'm talking, I'm not going to be really demonstrating properly what I'm doing. So that's why we're going to be sharing a video with you after the 5 days, and again, we're going to be posting it so you can actually see some of the work with me doing it. But I do want to share the flying technique, because this is like amazing at getting into the hip flexors, the psoas, where we're so tight, where it really affects the alignment of the pelvis and blocks blood and oxygen flow to the legs. And it's such an important muscle that we keep open, and it's very hard to access because it's so deep. So I'm gonna fly you, and I'm gonna have Quinn explaining some stuff, and then after that we're gonna show you how we have created the block position to facilitate what this action is doing. So are you ready?
Ready.
Hopefully we're not gonna fall. We're not gonna make.
We haven't even come close to falling. No. And the first night, I was up in there. I'm like, oh wait, what's going on here? And today, I think I fell asleep for like 5 minutes.
Yeah.
I was just sitting there, and then I let my body just hang over you.
So let's show them.
Yeah.
All
okay.
right.
Let's do it.
Okay.
All right. All right.
Awesome. Okay. All right, so Quinn Castellane here, the lead block therapy instructor. And you can see, so what Deanna here is doing, she's completely supporting Doug, but what is actually happening underneath is extreme. We're completely helping to melt through the connective tissue, improve the blood and oxygen flow. Doug is breathing diaphragmatically. It's the combination of the pressure and the proper diaphragmatic breath that melts through the connective tissue to improve the blood and oxygen to those cells that have been previously blocked of life. So right here, I'm just gonna detach the camera here from the tripod so you guys can get a better and closer look. So Deanna is working right into Doug's hip flexors, and he had lots of issues with his psoas. This is where the psoas connects to onto the femur, all into these areas. So this has completely helped him relax.
Quinn, can you also share, having been a hockey player, how this would so benefit groin injuries for hockey players?
Absolutely. Well, I was a hockey player my entire, I'm only 21, but for pretty well my entire life. And I just played hockey maybe a month or two ago for my first time in years, it seems. And I couldn't believe how compressed and tight my hip flexors were. So something like this, we have a block therapy position for the hip flexors, which is affecting the psoas, which is literally the deepest muscle in the body. And this completely releases the compression. I couldn't believe, like, I could hardly walk the next day. And we're gonna be demonstrating the hip flexor position on the block after, so you can all see exactly how you can do this for yourself. So again, Fluid Isometrics is where block therapy originated from. It's the self-care version. So Deanna's actually doing a lot of work that you can't see. It's the small intuitive movements that get deeper and deeper into the tissue.
Okay.
Awesome, I'm gonna set this back into the tripod.
That's great. Easy.
So now, I mean, we've done
We
this.
didn't fall.
No, we didn't fall. And we've
No
done
one was
this
harmed.
every day.
Yes.
First day, you know.
I didn't know what was going on. Second day was
but
a
you
lot
did great.
easier.
Yeah.
Today was, I didn't get much sleep because of things going on, and but I fell asleep. It's so easy.
But I remember after we did it the very first day, you stood up and you said, like, wow.
Oh yeah.
My groin has not felt like this
Yes.
in years, if ever.
Decades.
Decades.
Over 2 decades. Like we shared on the last video, basically before I started Fluid Isometrics, I would have to do the psoas stretch, for the psoas, a hurdler stretch, no matter where I am. You know, before I start work, if I'm at a restaurant, I go somewhere in a restroom, I'm doing the psoas stretch, because when that psoas locks up, I'm falling forward and my day is gone, my week is gone. So far, I've not had to even do that stretch because I put the block. I'm doing the block therapy, the breathing, and of course the flying. It's perfect. In fact, we shared that I got up from dinner twice, not once, twice, and checked my leg, and it's like I'm free.
And you
No
know,
problem.
what I think is really neat is when I initially was communicating with you, I think you were you were very tentative
Yes,
to do anything with your body for fear that it might go out.
absolutely.
And yet day one, I'm flying you.
Yeah.
Like, you know, it looks pretty
Yeah.
extreme, but at the end of the day,
Definitely fear-based.
you were very relaxed.
Oh, yeah.
And you very much allowed my feet just to sink into your tissue.
Yeah.
And, you know, we stood there, or we were there the first time for like 10 minutes.
Yeah.
And
It's really not that difficult, and it's far more logical. Maybe you can explain something, because you explain it very well. The difference between tissue, with the Fluid Isometrics for your tissue, and stretching.
Yes.
What stretching does or does not do into the problem, as you said. Yeah.
And you know what? In fact, it was my brother-in-law, Cole, this is Quinn's dad, who asked me years ago, what's the difference between a yoga class and one of your Fluid Isometrics treatments? And you know, it was the first time, this was again, like probably 10 years ago, it was the first time that question was posed to me, and I thought, oh, wonderful question, because I haven't had to express this before. So when we're doing stretching, whether it's stretching or yoga or whatever, what we're doing is we're keeping the tissue that is available at its longest length. What we're doing with block therapy, or Fluid Isometrics, is we're releasing the tissue that's gripped and stuck onto the bone to integrate that into the tissue to create more length. So we're actually adding more tissue to lengthen, because stretching alone is not going to pull that tissue that's glued and adhered at that 2,000 pound per square inch force off the bone. So for example, if I'm doing a forward bend like this, and I'm here and I say, okay, this is my limiting factor, this is stopping me from going forward. If I keep stretching for years and years, I might gain a little bit, but that's not gonna pull that grip off. When we actually use the block on the hamstring and we spend our time, for example, this way, and I get deep in the tissue and I'm actually releasing that tissue from the bone, we get to go in and find where those grips are, spend 3 to 5 minutes on that with the breath to create that release of the magnetic seal on the bone. So then when we're done, now we can go all the way down.
Excellent, yeah.
So it's amazing. And you know, it was when I was doing yoga that I realized this, because I would go to these yoga classes and I was already intuitively doing this work on myself at the time, and I would go and I would say, okay, I'm in a triangle pose or a forward bend or whatever it is, and I would find what was stopping me. Then I would go home and I would work on the area. Next class, I've moved to a new level. And I would see the same people year after year, never moving past the levels that they were at.
Interesting, yeah.
And yet every single time I would go, I would move to a new level, because I would come home and I would actually release it on myself so I could get to that new level to find the next area that's stuck.
Right.
So again, it's like going backward through time in our tissue.
It's very revelatory. I mean, honestly, the fact that I had a list, I think I gave you that sheet. I had a sheet of exercises to do for scoliosis. And one of them was a stretch that when I did it, long before I met you, I was out for the count for days. I mean, I don't know what it did, but it definitely pulled a muscle, because I was in a foul mood because I couldn't really walk well. So the block therapy, what's incredible is that when I'm doing moves that are maybe not super comfortable, because you're talking about decades of scar tissue.
Yeah.
By breathing the way that you and Quinn have taught me to do, and I'm still learning. I'm only 3 days in, but I'm getting it down. The pain dissipates, like I've said before, very quickly. As long as you stay calm, keep the smile, and then slowly get off the block. It's incredible. It's so superior to the old school stretching and stretch before you do something. This is ameliorating the problem completely. I've not had any grind, no problems with it since before.
So what I want you to do now, because you know, not everybody out there is going to have my feet holding your body up.
That's true.
I want to show how we can use the block for this position to show how simple it is really to get into that hip flexor area. So are you good to do it?
Yeah, sure. Why not?
Wonderful. Okay.
Let's do it.
So you are on your stomach, and let's do that one so everyone can see.
All right.
And I'll explain where you're putting it. So you know the drill now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This
Okay.
leg goes up, and that leg goes back, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So
Doesn't have, yeah, whatever.
right. Okay.
And that's
Just
the
to
thing.
balance myself.
Everybody's body is different, so you know it's not about being overly specific in how you use your body. It's being specific in the placement of the block.
Okay.
So with this hip flexor, we have what's called the AIS bone right here. And we want it to be just below, so we're getting right into that hip flexor.
Yeah.
And so you're literally just hanging out here right now. Yeah, how's it feel?
It's fine.
It's fine?
You're craving it to do its thing.
And you feel it though.
I feel it, but it's not painful.
Right.
It's not painful.
Well,
So-
and you just had my feet in there, so.
That's true. It's true.
So, and then the cool part of this too is it's all about searching for pain, because pain equals restriction. And if we can wrap our head around that, pain becomes our friend, because that's what it is. It's adhesion. So we want to be a pain seeker. So as you settle in here and you connect to your breath, those pressure fibers are going to kick in, it's going to start to melt, and then eventually you're not going to feel any pain, but now you want to go looking for it, because we don't want to not look for it. We want to make it our friend so we can say goodbye through that exhalation.
I actually enjoy looking for it.
Yeah.
Because then it goes away.
Right.
We become friends, and then when he's not too good of a friend, I tell him to go away. So
So you can even start creating a little bit of movement. You know, you can lift that leg up, you can start to move it left to right. Again, we're moving very slowly with everything, because it's not about staying on the surface, it's about sinking in and very slowly searching for those restrictions. And when we find one, we don't want to run away from it, we want to stay with it for a minimum of 3 full exhalations until that pain dissipates, which means we've now released more restrictions, so now we go even deeper, and now we want to find the next level. So we just keep going deeper and deeper and deeper. And the old stuff is deep. So as we continue to move more deeply into the tissue, we're pulling that old injury out of the tissue, putting that space back, and really the tissue is becoming rejuvenated. It's becoming younger because we're taking the old stuff out. How you doing?
Good. I'm moving into it.
Perfect. And I can see that you're settling in now, which is really, really nice. So we just wanted to share a couple of these positions because block therapy, it really takes no skill. You do not have to learn much at all. You simply have to follow the instruction, and really it's all about your breath is your guide. There's only 2 rules in block therapy. Your breath is your guide, so as long as you're breathing, you're feeding and healing your tissue. If something hurts so much that you can't breathe in a relaxed way, then we need to back off and we need to do it less intensely. And if we can't do it on a floor, you can do it on a mattress where there's more cushion. That's number 1. And then the second rule is, because this is a process of melting, we need to stay for a minimum of 3 minutes. If you jump into a position for only 1 minute, that's not going to be long enough to really connect to those pressure fibers, to connect to the breath and create enough heating to really melt through those restrictions in the tissue. So this is a little bit of demonstration. Again, we're going to be sharing a video for you that's going to show more of the actual fluid isometrics technique. And later this evening, we're going to do another interview with Doug because we still have a whole bunch more work we're going to be doing on him. And then tomorrow being our last day, we're going to take our final after pictures of the 5 days, and we're going to post everything so you can see the amazing transformation. And again, I'm so pleased looking at his back here, because when we started, this was up here and it's flattened so much. His back looks incredible, and I can just tell in the way that he's moving, his whole body's more fluid, it's heated, he's so much more comfortable in his own skin. But I'm going to let him share that with you later. So thank you all so much, and we'll see you later tonight.
Okay.